Hello and welcome. So today we are diving into the Edwardian Era, that short, kind of glittering period right at the start of the 20th century. You know, it's often pictured as this long, sunny garden party, right? The last gasp of imperial calm before the massive storm of World War I. But as we're about to see, it was so much more than that. It was this fascinating, turbulent, and deeply contradictory time that really built the bridge to the world we live in today.
And just so you know, our guide for this whole deep dive comes from some really solid academic work. It's all based on study materials put together by the Department of English at Odisha State Open University, so we've got a fantastic framework for really getting a grip on this pivotal time.
All right, let's get into it. Here's the game plan for our explainer. First, we're going to unpack the era's wild contradictions, and then we'll see how it acted as this bridge to modernity. From there, we'll look at three key authors, Forster, Chesterton, and Bennett, to see how they were capturing this incredible moment of change. And we'll wrap it all up by looking at the lasting echo of the Edwardian age. Sound good? Let's go.
So, when you picture the Edwardian era, what pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's all about high society, isn't it? Lavish parties, the British Empire at its absolute peak. I mean, King Edward VII himself was famous for his love of all things grand. It's this powerful image of pure elegance and unshakable confidence.
But was that shiny, gilded surface the whole story? Oh, not even close. Because right underneath all that glitz, there were these massive tensions shaking the very foundations of British society.
And this, right here, is the crucial point. This deep, profound duality. You have the Gilded Age of unbelievable wealth and empire on one side, and an age of serious unrest on the other. Just think about it for a second. The Industrial Revolution had created these enormous fortunes, but it also led to just staggering poverty and horrible working conditions. And that lit a fire under demands for reform, the rise of powerful trade unions, and of course the incredibly passionate and relentless fight for women's right to vote.
And as if all that social upheaval wasn't enough to deal with, technology was just completely rewriting the rules of daily life. The automobile, the telephone, electricity. I mean, these weren't just cool new gadgets. They were fundamentally shrinking the world, changing how people lived and worked and even talked to each other. And at the exact same time, you've got new art forms like photography and cinema popping up, offering totally new ways to see and understand reality itself. So all of this brings us right to our central idea. The Edwardian era wasn't just an end or a beginning. It was a transition, a bridge, between two worlds that were miles apart.
This really nails the essence of the time. It was caught right between the super rigid moral codes of the Victorian age and the explosive, totally unpredictable changes of the 20th century. This was a decade poised right on the brink of transformation, and it was laying the groundwork for literally everything that came next.
So, the big question is, how did writers respond to all this chaos? I mean, how do you even begin to tell stories about a world where all the old rules are just melting away? Let's turn to three major authors who basically became the key witnesses and interpreters of this incredible moment.
First up, E.M. Forster. If there was one writer who just perfectly captured the anxieties and the moral headaches of the Edwardian middle class, it was him. His work is almost obsessed with the knots and tangles of human relationships, the crushing pressure of social rules, and those deep, often impossible divides between the classes.
And his central message, his big plea, can pretty much be summed up in two simple words: only connect. This famous line from his masterpiece, Howard's End, is his great theme. It's a call for empathy, a plea to connect our public lives with our private passions, and to try, somehow, to bridge the massive gaps between the different classes of English society.
And you see this theme playing out in all his major works. In Howard's End, for example, he pits the idealistic, intellectual Schlegel sisters against the super-pragmatic, business-minded Wilcox family. The whole novel is this struggle to connect these two halves of England, the world of art and ideas with the world of commerce and action. His characters are always fighting this battle to be their true selves in a world that's constantly telling them to just fall in line.
Okay, now for a completely different voice. G.K. Chesterton. This guy was a journalist, a poet, a novelist, a critic, a true literary giant. And as he watched the modern age get more and more materialistic and skeptical, Chesterton became this powerful, witty, and often hilarious champion of faith, tradition, and what he just called common sense wisdom. And his secret weapon? Paradox. Chesterton absolutely loved to take an idea and flip it completely upside down to force you to see it in a totally new way. He used these startling contradictions to push back against the cold, hard logic of his time, basically arguing that the most profound truths often sound a little bit crazy, or even miraculous.
And his output was just unbelievable. I mean, from the surreal spy thriller that's also a theology book, The Man Who Was Thursday, to his profound defense of Christian faith and orthodoxy, all the way to the beloved detective stories of Father Brown, Chesterton used his immense talent to question the direction the modern world was speeding towards.
Now, while Forster was busy dissecting the London elite and Chesterton was wrestling with huge theological questions, our third author, Arnold Bennett, turned his gaze somewhere else entirely. He became the great storyteller of ordinary life, specifically life in the industrial, working-class heartland of England.
He focused on this very specific region, known as the Five Towns, the industrial pottery-making district of Staffordshire. He was all about a kind of gritty realism that the fancy London literary scene often just ignored. He wrote about ambition, about hardship, and about the daily struggles of people in a world that was defined by factories and hard work.
His novels, like Anna of the Five Towns and his absolute masterpiece, The Old Wives' Tale, are just filled with incredible detail and a really deep empathy for his characters. In The Old Wives' Tale, he follows two sisters over the course of decades, making the slow, steady passage of time the real hero of the story. He just masterfully captures the weight of social rules and the quiet heroism of simply living an ordinary life.
So where does this all leave us? Well, you have all these forces, social unrest, incredible technological change, and these powerful new literary voices all churning together, and they created the perfect storm, the perfect conditions for the next great cultural earthquake: modernism.
So, the Edwardian legacy really lies in the questions it started asking. You can see it here. Writers and thinkers, they challenged the strict moral codes left over from the Victorian age. They reflected the simmering social tensions around class and gender and poverty, dragging them right into the spotlight. And in doing all that, they started experimenting with new ideas, which threw the door wide open for the radical artistic shifts that would define modernism.
Ultimately, the Edwardian era wasn't some peaceful, quiet end to the 19th century. Nope, it was a dramatic, conflicted, and super dynamic prologue to the 20th. It perfectly captures that feeling of a society caught between a world that was dying and another one that was fighting like hell to be born.
You know, the Edwardians stood on the brink of a massive transformation, staring into a future of unimaginable technological, social, and political change. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. What brink are we standing on today?